Are you ready for this?
I'm really nervous. Oh my gosh.
I ate one.
You want to do a bar?
I ate one.
I don't want grill. Mine doesn't want grill.
months after I became a Christian, I don't know exactly what happened out on Interstate 80 on the Point River Bridge. Whether it was a blown right front tire or whether I just blacked out or what, I really don't know. But all I remember was going about 75 miles an hour into a bridge railing, and it caused the car to go to the other side of the road where I hit the 18-inch curbing and just snapped the A-frame of my 67 Ford. And that sent me at a 90-degree angle, careening off the bridge over the Des Moines River, where I did a swan dive in my car and landed on a sandbank about 45, 50 feet down and broke my neck between 5 and 6 vertebrae. That totally paralyzed my left side. Absolutely no movement. No matter how hard I fought to move, no matter what I did, no movement. When I was unconscious, my car burst with the plank. The only thing that woke me up was I had about 3,000 firecrackers underneath my front seat, and they all went off, and that woke me up, just for an instant. 2 truckers pulled me out of the car, and they flew me by helicopter to Iowa City Hospital, where they woke me up again, shaved my head, the top part of it, and started drilling holes in my head, put me in traction and brakes. 80 pounds of weight off my head, snapping back into place. Wasn't a pretty thing. They said, Mr. Mason, we're going to have to, my name's May, they called me May, we're going to have to drill holes in your head. And passed out again. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the hospital, laying flat on my back, couldn't move anything on my left side, couldn't get up because I was in traction for almost 2 months. I went from 195 down to 125, 2 months. Wasted away. I was living death. You saw death. I was living death. And you know, it doesn't always end up that way. That's a tragedy, but sometimes it ends up, as far as living, pretty rough too. And there's a lot of people a lot worse off than me. They're paralyzed from here down simply because they broke their neck in an auto accident. And I know a lot of them when I went to rock young for rehabilitation, just as bitter with life and God and people as they can be. And others just no movement, nothing to do. Tried to move, couldn't move. So I lay there for almost 2 months, totally paralyzed on my left side, and finally my left leg shot out. And little by little, over a period of almost a year, I learned how to walk. If I look back on that incident, the more I realize, the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that drugs and alcohol, even though I wasn't on them at the time, hadn't been on them for 3 months, had so distorted my thinking, had so fogged me out, had so burnt me out, that I wasn't all there. So if you plan on doing any drugs or any drinking, may I classify you in a category that is not all there right now. You can have a lot of fun, you can enjoy life, you can be able to move freely, strongly, or you can go ahead and waste your life away with drugs and alcohol and maybe end up like this. Maybe not physically, but definitely emotionally, definitely it will affect relationships, and you may be responsible for putting somebody in a body bag like what you saw today. Thanks for letting me share.
Well, thank you for your contribution. Now we'll start the process. In the event that you are involved in an accident, there'll be the first person on the scene will more than likely be law enforcement. And for law enforcement, we have Ron McClure, the sheriff of Rock County, with us. So he will walk you through what he will do as a first responder.
As most of you do, I know most of you know what you drive, people with. Here's the most important thing, is that I'm going to be the first one on the scene, or my deputies are going to be the first one on the scene. Be careful of people. So hurt us, dealing with this type of situations. We hope we never find a dead body. From there, we get on the scene, we're going to take care of the injured. We're going to make sure the ambulance, rescue squads, the fire departments, the helicopter in the air, we try to get them here all at the same time. It doesn't work all the time. Sometimes there's a little lapse in between. We're going to be there. We're going to talk to you. We're try to find out who's driving the vehicle. If there's alcohol in the vehicle, we're going to take that as evidence for us. The driver, if it was under the influence, we feel some light and we get out there. office. We'll read them the implied consent and ask him if he'll give us a blood test. If he refuses to give us a breath test, I should say that blood. Breath will be first. If that person can give a breath test, we'll have him go on it. If it's over 0.10, you'll be arrested for the DWI. We will take your driver's license from you. We will give you a 7-day permit to drive on for 7 days, and your driver's license will go to the state of Minnesota. It'll be your responsibility if you want to back and follow through with the procedure that you have to go through. From there, we'll contact your parents as juveniles and tell your parents that they'll be taking the detox. After you will spend the night there unless your parents come over to get you. The toughest thing for us as law enforcement people to do is when we find a dead body. So go tell your parents. Wake them up out of sleep and say, I hate to tell you this, but your son's passed away in a car accident, or your daughter's passed away in a car accident. As you've seen us live up that body today and put it in the hearse, that's it. You're visible tomorrow, and if you're just thinking, just a couple of drinks, you say, well, it's never going to happen to me because I drive really careful. If I have a couple of beers, I take the gravel roads, I don't worry about it. Well, that's what we call them accidents, because you never know when. You don't even have to be drinking to have an accident. We have a lot of accidents, and now that's all we live with. But in the state of Minnesota, 60% of the fatalities is alcohol related. The driver's drunk or had something to drink. So with them statistics, just think about it. Mr. Coleman, I went and told him what had happened to his daughter. And he was a very personal friend of mine. Now, every time we talk, we end up crying over this. It's really hard for us to deal with this. We as law enforcement got to do the job. The firemen, the ambulance people, got to do the job. What you saw out there today, what they can do, you're in pretty capable hands. And if any time during the year, if you want to come to our office, take a look at some of the stuff up there, or come in with some questions that we can help you out with, we'll be glad to do that. Our service is open to you any time, because you're very important to us. You know, sometimes people don't like police officers. But down deep inside, if you ever need something to help you out with anything, you'll be the person who's going to help you out. And they'll give you good advice. Is there any? Thank you.
The next presenter would be the individual you see if you were just injured. You were lucky enough to get an ambulance ride back to our medical center. He's Dr. Vogel, and he's a physician in Auburn Community Hospital. Dr. Vogel.
I hope I don't see anybody that's in car accident. I want to talk to you a little bit about how my job is challenged if you come in and you're drinking. Taking care of someone who gets into a car accident is difficult enough without alcohol. We need to figure out what the injuries are. And to figure that out, you rely on the information we get about the accident and about the patient. And a lot of that information comes from the patient, hopefully. We'll ask a history to find out what happened in the accident, how you hurt yourself. We'll get a history on whether you've had any health problems before. Someone who has asthma, for example, or if they're on medicine that might affect how they treat you. And alcohol interferes with that. Sometimes it interferes just by making you confused. You can't give us the history. I want to tell you a story about someone, a case that I was involved in when I was in medical school. And that involved two brothers that had been driving around their pickup in Omaha. And they had been drinking, and they ran a red light, and they got hit by another vehicle. And they got hurt badly, not critical injuries, but they ended up in the emergency room with fractures, broken bones, and they were beat up pretty bad. And both were admitted to the hospital. And at that time, I was taking a course called pathology. Pathology is the study of diseases and how they affect tissue, how they affect organs. And we have a laboratory that we study in also. And the professor brought a liver, a human liver, a 12-year-old boy. His liver had a laceration in it. The boy had bled to death. The story was that these two brothers that were driving the pickup were both drunk. And one of them was driving. They were both drunk. They finally became sober enough to start giving a history or telling what had happened several hours after the accident. And it was then that they asked about their little brother, the 12-year-old, that had been riding in the back of the pickup. And when they found that out, the police went back to the scene of the accident. There was a big hedge, a real thick hedge, the side of the road, and that little boy had been thrown into the hedge. And he had died of bleeding into his abdomen from the ruptured liver. So it was something that could have been treated. Something that kind of injury we see, and with surgery and with transfusion, someone like that didn't have to die. He didn't die so much from the accident, he died because his brother was intoxicated, and they couldn't give us the history.
The next speaker is a representative from the Rock County Attorney's Office. Southwest Mental Health Center. But he's not going to be speaking as the director of the Mental Health Center. He's going to be providing a testimony on just what drinking and driving can and what it can cause. So I bring Mr. Coleman.
I'm the guy who started to get on the bottom pay. You know, pay. It was January 3rd, 1992, until Saturday night in her Minnesota, senior in high school. Although she was doing her freshman year in college, she was gifted, she was beautiful, she was rolling with him. She went out with her friends. My wife and I went to get together because one of our friends had just gotten his master's degree. Got back about 12, I would imagine. We were getting ready for bed, and we heard the sirens go down through Mountain Avenue. And my wife said, "Oh, I hope nobody's hurt." You know, when you hear the sirens. Went to bed, didn't think too much about it. A couple hours later, the doorbell rang. Let me tell you, when the doorbell rang at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was some good news. My wife must have had a premonition because she said something as she hurried out to answer the door, and I was still about half asleep. I heard her talking to some people in the living room. I got my robe on, I came outside, and the sheriff referred one of the EMT group people that my wife happened to work with at Berkeley, and happened to be our interim pastor, who I didn't even recognize because I'd not known him that long. And they were talking about the girl at the hospital, and that she'd been hurt a little bit. They weren't sure how bad she was hurt, and that but they thought she'd be okay. And so when I walked up, I said, "Well, what about Stacy?" And Ron turned to me, and he shook his head like this. And, he said, "She's big." They left. The pastor prayed with us when he left, and my wife and I sat on the couch. And we thought it was a bad dream. Suddenly we realized the real weak boy. And so was the hospital, because we had to identify the body. When we got there was a bunch of hysterical, half-drunk teenagers saying, "Oh my God, this could happen." Running up and down the hall trying to find Stacy because they heard that she was dead. We went in, identified the body. I went out in the hallway to see what I could do with some of the kids. And one of Stacy's best friends was there. She couldn't comprehend the fact that Stacy was dead. So when I got my wife, I ordered to take Christy into the room to see Stacy. As far as I know, Christy's the only friend that saw Stacy after she died. So the time she was breathing. But it seemed like the only way that we could get Christy to comprehend Stacy's birthday. They were sewing, stitching Kirsten, and tell you what reality is at that time. It's a little unreal. I went into where they were stitching her forehead and they were checking her neck. They were worried that she might have a neck injury, and turned out later that she didn't. But they were stitching her, and her foot was out through the blanket, and I grabbed her big toe to find out if she was alive, because when you touched Stacy, she was cold, and she was asleep, and Kirsten was moving. And I held her toe, and I know she was, who was this crazy man? She didn't know me that well, but it was my reality at the moment that somebody was alive. I got to the doctor, and I said, "You know that Stacy was a donor, that she had, when we moved to Laverne about 6 months previously, she went and got her driver's license, and I suppose most of the people all done this when you got your driver's license. There's a spot on the back that says you're willing to donate your organs. Stacy wasn't sure whether she wanted to or didn't want to, so her mother said it was up to her, and so she checked the box. And I remember when she came back and got her driver's license, she thought it was a big joke. She said, "You know, that doesn't affect me. I'll be alive for the next 40, 50 years. You know, she's 18 years old. She's not going to die." 6 months later, Dr. Robbins called in Minneapolis to bring the heart harvest parts of the body that they could use for the patient. Stacy was dead at the scene of the accident. That means that she cannot, they could not use her heart, lungs, those kinds of things. The only thing that they could use for Stacy were her eyes, her skin, and the long lung. And so we did donate the body organs, and ask all of you to think about that. Again, Stacy never expected to go out there and die. What happened was what happened on Saturday night. Went out and had a few drinks with two friends. Was on an unusual road for her, I think, and something went wrong with her tape. And she bent over to fix her tape. In a matter of seconds, she could turn and went home. I'd like to say one other thing in regard to that. We have to come from Iowa, and I don't know where in Iowa is right now. But in Iowa, if you don't wear your seatbelt, they find you really readily. They don't care if you're driving or not driving or whatever. And just prior to us moving up here, Stacy had been fined $43 per passenger for not having her seatbelt on. So she was one of those people that knew very quickly how much it cost to buy the things she wanted, and she decided she wasn't going to spend her $43 on seatbelt violations. So she always wore a seatbelt. But in Laverne, I guess it wasn't cool to wear a seatbelt. They tell us, and it's not very much of a consolation, but they say if Stacy would have been wearing her seatbelt, she'd be alive. But she wasn't, and she isn't. I'm just going to do a little bit more. I don't know how much time I got. I'm handling a little bit better than I handled this morning. We went to the funeral. One thing, I used to teach the DWI class, all things about people getting picked up in drunks. Well, I used to teach the class for 7 years. Stacy and I had a conversation. I said, Stacy, if somebody got killed in an alcohol-related accident, how long before your friends would be drinking again? And she said, less than a week. And I said, Stacy, crazy. It's got to be longer than that. It's got to have a bigger effect than that. And she said, no, we feel really bad, but we think, hey, it was an accident. It doesn't really relate to us. It's not going to happen to us. And we go do it again. Stacy was dead early Sunday morning. We buried her. We had two funerals. We had one here. We had one down in Iowa. We had the funeral on Tuesday. There was a party scheduled that night. I've always been appreciative of the kids that they called it up. But Stacy was right. People really don't think it's going to happen. It happens to other people, and it's really unfortunate, and it's all these kinds of things. As I said, she was scheduled to graduate in June. When graduation came to Laverne that year, my wife and I left town. And to be very honest with you, it's a terrible thing to say because we think of the world and the kids that she associated with, but we also resented her. What right did they have to be alive and she was here? So we left town and we didn't do graduations, we wanted to get involved in graduation parties, those kinds of things. Now it's 4 years later, her friends are graduating from college, getting married, and having babies. And when I did this first presentation I ever did, it was right shortly after her death. I did one with her, and we were thinking maybe it could change people's thinking. And I was on the panel, and this lady came up to me. And she says, you don't know me, but she said, we're forever linked. She said, my daughter was the last one killed prior to Stacy. And she says, my daughter will be forever 7 years old. Well, Stacy would have been 23 in September. But Stacy is forever 18 years old. I'll tell you, the mourning goes on for a long time. When we came to Laverne, one of the things that Stacy wanted as some benefit for moving, we bought her a dog. We bought her a little Yorkshire Terrier, and that was Stacy's dog. And her name was Tiki. And Stacy had the upstairs, pretty much to herself in our house. And the dog used to lay on the landing at the top of her stairs. And for about the first 3 weeks that Stacy was dead, all Tiki would do is go up and lay on the landing at the top of the stairs. And then when the kids would come in to talk to us, and as they did, after the death, she would come down and she would sniff all the girls to see if it was Stacy. They all had jeans and long hair and jackets on, and she would check to see if they were Stacy. And then when she'd smell them and they realized it wasn't Stacy, she'd just go back up on the landing and lay there. Even Tiki misses it. I don't want to preach to you. All I'm saying is, think about it. Stacy had never been in an accident. She never had any problems, no kind of thing. 30 seconds probably to fix that tape. And she wouldn't have hit that curve, but she had no second option. She was dead. I thank you.
Speakers have taken you from the whole gamut. From the time at the scene, to the time with the doctor, to the time with the county attorney, to the grieving process for parents. And at this time, I'd like to see if there's any questions from any of you. One more group of people to bring up, and those are the victims. Please come up here. Anything you'd like to say?
happen in your community today. I'm from Sioux Falls, a larger community where we have a lot of concerned parents, but you are so lucky, this entire community is so lucky to have people from Hills and Cedar Creek and Laverne care so much about you that they would take a day out of their work life to come out and do this demonstration for you. It just shows how much they care about each and every one of you. And I think that they all deserve an applause, number one. And number two, I hope their message really sinks into you. I remember being a teenager and that you think it's only going to happen to the other person, it can't happen to you. And I think some of the victims today were truly touched by the fact that it can happen to you. And unfortunately, Mr. Coleman has had to live this reality, but I did see something in the paper the other day that really sunk into me, and I can't take credit for this, but what it said was, remember that your automobile is not the only thing that would be recalled by the police.
If there are no questions at this time, I too would like to thank the emergency workers, the speakers, and everyone from the Team Coalition for planning this event. And I'd also like to thank the audience, because you're the reason that we did this today. The goal, if I can use the word, goal, was to get a message across. And I sincerely hope in my heart that we've done that. And with that, Mr. Goldman.
I'd like to thank everybody who participated today. I hope it does have an impact, or we take a moment and reflect back on how, like the speakers have talked about, it can happen. Don't assume ever that you might be bypassed, and we hope that nobody ever does have that happen. I also want to compliment you folks who are excellent all day long. You listened. It's probably one of the few times we haven't had to use the speaker system for speakers to be heard. So I compliment you on that. If anybody wants to visit with anybody, I'm sure some of those folks will talk to you. If you'd like to talk,